Yo, I'm Yovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and NBA free agency has officially started. We are a few hours in, and there's been some crazy things that have happened. Chris Paul is going to be joining Victor Wembanyama as a San Antonio Spur. Paul George is officially leaving the LA Clippers and will likely be going to the Philadelphia 76ers. KCP has left the Denver Nuggets and is going to Orlando. But for our purposes today, the news of the day with the Lakers is that LA has re-signed restricted free agent Max Christie before he even hit restricted free agency to a 4-year deal worth $32 million with a player option on the 4th year, according to league and team sources. ESPN was first to report. And it's a contract that I think is pretty good value for Max Christie. I think it's good value for both sides. First, with the Lakers, it is a bet on Max Christie as a prospect. And it's worth mentioning Max is still only 21. He will not be turning 22 until the end of next season. So he's younger than several players that were taken in the first round of the 2024 NBA draft, including new Lakers rookie Dalton Knecht, who's 23 and will be turning 24 next season. So Max, from an age and development perspective, still is years away from his prime and really could be entering the NBA right now had he stayed at Michigan State for an extra year or two. There had been buzz when the Lakers took him in the second round that if Max had returned to Michigan State for his sophomore season and had the season that he was expected to have, that he could have been a lottery pick in the 2023 NBA draft. So I think from the Lakers side, they are betting on Max Christie, the 6'6", 3-and-D wing, who's been a 40% spot-up three-point shooter through his first couple seasons in the NBA, who's shown flashes of being a good to really good perimeter defender, especially against backcourt players, and who's an underrated and sneakily effective defensive rebounder. And that's really important for a group that has struggled with rebounding at times and a group that has also been undersized on the perimeter. Max Christie checks a lot of the boxes that the Lakers need. So while $8 million in terms of annual value is maybe a little bit higher than some people were expecting, I think from the Lakers side, it is a good investment in Max Christie, the prospect, and really actualizing the flashes of potential we've seen from him through his first couple seasons. And there's still this mystery element to Max because he had 3 different stints his rookie season as a rotation player. And then last year was a rotation player for about half the games, but was out of the rotation a bit when Cam Reddish and Jared Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent were all briefly healthy earlier in the season. And then later in the season, once Gabe returned and the Lakers added Spencer Dinwiddie and then Cam made a late cameo, Max was on the outside looking in of the rotation again. So he's gone through stretches over the course of his first couple of years of being in the rotation, but we've never really seen a fully unleashed Max Christie in terms of you're playing 15, 20, 25 minutes every single night. And from what I've been told, JJ Redick is a fan of Max Christie and plans on using him as a rotation player next season. And I think it was noteworthy that during the Dan Hurley search, Max Christie was one of the names that was brought up as a foundational young piece for the Lakers. And then during JJ Redick's intro press conference, Max Christie was one of the guys who was named and is viewed internally as one of the Lakers' young core pieces. So LA is betting on Max Christie. They're putting their money behind it. And Max Christie is going to enter next season as a rotation player, which frankly, he should have been a rotation player last year. I thought he proved that he was better than Cam Reddish. And frankly, with how Spencer Dinwiddie and Gabe Vincent closed the season and some of the ups and downs and really some of the downs, I thought Max Christie should have gotten another look late in the season. But that's in the past. That's its own conversation about Darvin Ham and how he viewed Max Christie. But Max Christie really showed, I thought in that Grammy trip, especially in the game against the Knicks and against the Celtics, that he was a rotation caliber player. And looking at the way that, say, a Denver developed a Christian Brown and a Peyton Watson and put those guys in positions to succeed during the regular season. I think the Lakers could stand to do that next season with Max Christie and maybe with another younger player like a Dalton Connect or someone else, if that player shows flashes of being a rotation caliber player. So the Lakers have talked about player development, developing their young guys, and now they are backing that up with actual actions by re-signing Max Christie and empowering him next season to be a rotation guy. So from the Lakers side, I think this contract is going to age well, and Max Christie is going to become one of the better values on the team and just one of the better values in general. I would not be surprised if he's worth $7 to $8 million next season. And I would expect by the 2025-26 season that Christie will be outperforming this deal. Now, as for Christie's side, he is a second round pick. And he is someone who has not played consistent minutes, has not had a consistent role through his first couple seasons. So him testing the market, like Sam Vecini was on the podcast and he said he thought Max was worth $8 to $10 million. I tended to agree with that range, though, as I've reported on here, the range I had been hearing was like $6 to $8 million. So this puts him on the higher end of the range that I had heard. But I still think it's, again, a fair value. And for Max, you are getting a contract based more on who you can become and who you've shown you can be in flashes rather than the player that you are according to the numbers and just what you've shown through your first 2 years in totality. So for Max, it is him maybe not accepting like the maximum money that he could have gotten. Like maybe if he hit restricted free agency, there's a team that offers him 9 or 10 million annually and bumps some of these numbers up. But for him, it was like he wanted to stay in LA. And it was a big priority for the Lakers to retain him. Obviously, it was the first move that they made, but clearly a priority for Max as well to resolve this and come to terms. So I thought it was just a nice middle point for both sides where LA is betting on him and betting on his development and now trying to empower that development. And Max is getting a contract for his potential rather than for what he's actually produced. And that seems to be a fair middle ground where I think for the Lakers, you could say, he probably deserves a little bit less based on the production. And for Max, you could say he deserves a little bit more for his age and his potential. And they met in the middle. So to me, this is a good contract. This is a fair value. It's fair for both sides. And I thought it was a shrewd move by the Lakers to execute this before free agency even started. It's also worth noting that the Lakers re-signing Max Christie brings them to 15 players with guaranteed contracts on the roster. And that's assuming, of course, that they're going to sign Dalton Connect, that they're going to sign Bronny James, and that LeBron James is going to re-sign. But with all those assumptions and all indications are all three of those guys are going to be on the roster next season, or at least sign contracts to be on the roster next season. That brings the Lakers to 14 players, and then Max Christie is the 15th player. So technically, teams can carry up to 20 players during the offseason, but the issue with that is if you go and sign player 16, player 17, player 18, you're going to have to unload those guys at some point. You are going to have to make a consolidation trade or two at some point. You're not going to carry those guys into the regular season, and you can't simply just waive those guys unless you sign them to non-guaranteed contracts, which if the Lakers are trying to add any free agent of substance, they're not going to be signing them to a non-guaranteed contract. So what this all means basically is that for the Lakers to make any notable additions to this roster in free agency from here on out, they're going to have to clear roster spots. And that will have to come in the form of a consolidation trade or even a couple of consolidation trades where they are either trading a player into a team with cap space and roster spots open, or doing some type of 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 or 3-for-2 type deal where they are sending out at least one more player than they have on their roster. So whether the Lakers want to re-sign Taurean Prince or Spencer Dinwiddie, or they want to use that non-taxpayer mid-level exception on a Klay Thompson, though it is trending toward him ending up in Dallas potentially for more than the non-taxpayer MLE. The Lakers will need to clear a roster spot. And the easiest way is trading one of the minimum guys, be it a Cam Reddish or a Christian Wood, into a situation where that team has empty roster spots and or some cap space, and they'll essentially function as a dumping ground, like a Detroit or a Brooklyn or a Washington, one of these rebuilding teams that is looking to take on bad contracts or unwanted contracts, and they will do so with the price being, attaching assets to it. So the Lakers would likely have to attach attach at least a second round pick, if not a couple. And as you saw with the Tim Hardaway situation with Dallas and Detroit, where Dallas dumped Tim Hardaway onto Detroit, they had to attach 3 second round picks in that trade. So for the Lakers to create some financial flexibility and open up an extra roster spot, they need to do a consolidation trade or 2. And ideally, they do a couple, or at least do a trade that maybe like a 3-for-1 or 4-for-2, something like that, where they open up a couple spots. Because I think the ideal outcome for them would still be using the non-taxpayer MLE and getting LeBron to take a pay cut to facilitate that. And then also re-signing Prince or Dinwiddie, or using that final spot on a vet minimum to plug a hole in the rotation, be it a backup center, an extra point guard if they trade D'Lo, or just another at-bat on another wing. So the Lakers are going to have to get creative here in terms of how they open up that roster spot or 2, but it all comes back to them giving Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, and Cam Reddish player options last year. That was a mistake. They went 0 for 3 on all 3 guys because none of those guys opted out for more money or bigger contracts. I mean, I think Jackson Hayes on a minimum contract is good value. Christian Wood and Cam Reddish, I am less sold on their ability to contribute to winning situations, to good teams. So I think the Lakers are likely going to make a move. It's probably going to be one of those 2. I don't think they're ready to give up on Jalen Hood-Schifino yet, though. That would be the easiest thing, is just trade Jalen Hood-Schifino to another team. And you might not even have to attach an asset. You could just say, take on this former first round pick. He's entering his second season. Like, we just need the roster spot and we need a little bit more financial flexibility. So the Lakers want to make another move if they don't want this roster to be as it is. They will have to make a consolidation trade. And again, they could technically sign non-guaranteed contracts or like Exhibit 10 contracts and stretch this out to 16, 17, 18, all the way up to 20 players. But you do not want to be signing 16, 17, 18 guys to guaranteed contracts, because then you're going to have to consolidate that at some point, and teams are going to know that you have to get rid of those players, and they could demand even more from you than a typical salary dump. So that's just something to keep in mind with this whole situation. Is the Lakers are at 15 players now, and they're going to have to do a consolidation trade or 2 to open up an empty roster spot or 2. Also, for those who watched the last show, I mentioned that if LeBron James took his max of $49.9 million, that would bring the Lakers to $182.3 million in committed salary before factoring in a Max Christie or anybody else. So that would give them about $7.2 million of wiggle room under the second apron. Now, the second apron actually is going to be about $600,000 less. It's going to be about $188.9 million. So that is an unfortunate blow for the Lakers. It's an unfortunate blow for the rest of the league, where the second apron's lower, the first apron's lower, the luxury tax line is lower. So teams are going to have to navigate that a little bit differently, with the projections now finalized and a little bit lower than what they were supposed to be. But as for the Lakers, I found it interesting that Max Christie's first year salary is projected at $7.1 million on Spotrac. So that would be right within that $7.2 million that I said the Lakers had to play with if LeBron was signing his max. So I do wonder if this is maybe a sign that LeBron is just signing his max and the Lakers aren't using the non-taxpayer MLE. I have not heard that. So this is just me reading the tea leaves and looking at the situation. And then also looking at the reported pieces that he was willing to take the pay cut for. Jonas Valanciunas just signed with the Washington Wizards. James Harden just signed a 2-year, $70 million deal with the Clippers. That was always ridiculous. As I said last show, James Harden is not signing for the non-taxpayer MLE. That never was a realistic option to me. The last guy's Klay Thompson. But I've been hearing that it seems like Dallas is at the forefront of the Klay Thompson search. They can offer him more than the non-taxpayer MLE potentially in a sign-in trade. So we'll see if there's another candidate that emerges for the Lakers for that non-taxpayer MLE. But 2 of the 3 are already off the board, and the third one looks to be trending more toward another team, at which point I think LeBron just takes the max. And then Max Christie's salary fits under the second apron, though again, because it's $600,000 less, the Lakers might have to just do a consolidation trade just to shed a little bit of money to get under that second apron, depending on where some of the figures end up. So a lot of moving parts here with the salary stuff. I feel like I have a decent to good grasp on the CBA, but this new CBA is even more complicated, and there's all these restrictions and penalties and all these things that trigger the first apron and the second apron and all this different stuff. So like, I'm still navigating it and learning it on the fly and trying to give you guys the most up-to-date up-to-date information. And then final thing on Max Christie and his contract is that because Max Christie re-signed and because he is receiving more than a 20% raise, he is not eligible to be traded until January 15th, 2025. And the Lakers have no plans of trading Max Christie. I'm just saying that I've seen some people asking me, oh, can he be traded for Clay? Can he be traded for someone else? Like, no, Max Christie cannot be traded until January 15th, 2025. And that's assuming that, like, he's not technically signed the contract yet. So once he puts pen to paper, that will finalize that. Like, the Lakers could technically sign and trade him somewhere else. And if a team is willing to accept the terms of his contract, like, the Lakers could do that in theory, but they don't want to do that. They are high on Max Christie. They're signing him to this type of contract for his potential. They want him to be a rotation player next season. They believe in the Max Christie hype and the Max Christie potential breakout. So that's not happening, but I just want to put it out there because I've already been asked. It's the same thing as Austin Reeves. Last year, Austin Reeves could not be traded until January 15th because similar, he signed also under the arenas provision, just like Max Christie. Both entered free agency after their second season. And with Austin, he also received more than a 20% raise. So because of that, Austin was not eligible to be traded until January 15th. And that is the same thing with Max Christie. But that'll do it for this reaction show. I'll be back later in the night if the Lakers make a bigger move, like signing someone to the non-taxpayer MLE or re-signing LeBron James. If not, I'll be back on Monday with another episode looking at the roster. Thank you so much for watching and listening. For those on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and drop a comment and like this video if you enjoyed it. And for those on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back soon. I'll talk to you then.